Alright, in this lesson we're going to be taking a look at the different types of objects to work with inside of Maya for creating models. There are essentially three different types. We have polygons, we also have NURBS, and we have subdivisions. Okay, I'm under the Basics tab right here for Autodesk Maya 2018. You can usually find this by going out to Google and doing a search for Autodesk Maya 2018 interface and coming out to the Autodesk knowledge site. Okay, I'm going to just move down here to selecting. So we're going to look at the various types of components that the different types of models or objects have. We've been working in the previous two lessons with object mode. We're now going to take a look at the different types of components associated with polygons and NURBS and how to manipulate those, as well as soft selection. Okay, let's come back out here to Maya. I'm going to come under my Poly Modeling tab, and I'm just going to click on the sphere. I'm going to hit F on the keyboard to frame up on that and just rotate it so I'm looking down the Z axis right here. Okay, so I've got X running this way and Z running front to back. Okay, back out a little bit here, and then I'm going to come over to my surface, my Curves and Surfaces tab. This is where you will find a number of curves to work with, as well as the NURBS. So I'm going to click a NURBS sphere that landed right on top of the other. I'm going to hit W on my keyboard. Actually, I'm going to hold X down and just snap it over 2 units along translate X. I'm going to grab the polygon, hold X down, and I'm going to move it to -2. And I'm going to shift select and grab them both. I'm going to hold X down and I'm going to bring them up 2 units. Okay, so now we've got them off the grid here, and we can take a look at the differences between these two types of objects. We can see a big difference right now just in the number of lines or edges that are showing up on each of them. If we click off, we really can't see a difference between the two of them. It's only when we select them or look at them over here in our outliner, which is accessed right here, we can see a P-sphere 1 and then a NURB sphere 1. Let's go into component mode and take a look at the differences between these. So over this object here, I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to get a marking menu. This allows us to see the different components. What we're looking at right now and what we have been looking at is object mode. So this is object mode. So when you're in object mode, you are limited to being able to translate, rotate, and scale, as well as turn on and off the visibility. But to actually begin to change the shape and make a unique shape, you have to go into component mode. So let's talk about the different types of components. I'm going to start with an obvious one, which is edge, because we can see the edges on here. And if I select that, that's straight up, and this is holding my right mouse button down, I can hover over the different edges and they highlight red. Let's just zoom in here a little bit more. Okay, so I can select the different edges and I can use this manipulator and just start pulling them around. So this is how we begin to shape objects and ultimately create assets and characters and vehicles and all of that. Okay, I'm going to hit Z to undo that and set it back there. With edges, you can select them individually. You can hold the Shift key down and select multiples right here. So if I wanted to pull these out, I could do that. Okay. You can also double click on an edge and it will select a ring going around in any particular direction here. So these are going around the object. If I try to go this way, it's going to stop because up here it's terminating at the top and it's not going to continue on to the other side because of all of these intersections right here. Okay, I would have to continue this edge flow around, I would have to hold Shift down and double click again, and then it has continued around in that direction. Okay, so that's edges. Let's go down to face, so that's straight down here. And the faces are the actual polygons themselves. So with polygons, the smallest polygon we can have is a triangle that will have 3 edges or 3 sides to it, as well as 4-sided polygons, which are called quads. So these are tris, these are quads, and anything that has 5 and above, 5 edges and over, is considered an n-gon, and those are not something you want to have in your models. They cause a lot of problems. So we try to stick with triangles and 4-sided polygons, quads, when we're modeling. Okay, so with a face, I can grab a face, pull that out, push it in. I can hold the shift key down. You can see I get a plus sign when I hold the shift key down, and I can double click here and it will send a loop around selecting all of those faces. And I can do something like choose R on the keyboard, and from the center one here I can scale up, scale this down, and you can see how it begins to take on a new form. Okay, so with selecting, right now we're just selecting one by one. We can hold the shift key down and select multiples. I can double click, send a loop all the way around of selections. And then I can also use the marquee, which is dragging that marquee across the scene with the object, and it will select both sides. So it's selecting 3-dimensionally, so it's selecting the back side as well. So let's say I want the whole top right here selected, and I missed a couple right there, and I missed these as well, so I'm just holding shift down. So now I've got all of those selected, and let's say I want to raise that up or scale it down, scale it this direction. Okay, so those are different ways of selecting, just using the mouse. You can also select here on a face and come under select, and there's ways of growing and shrinking your selections up here. You can see the hotkey for it. We've got the arrows. So if I do this, it's going to select all of those adjoining edges out. Okay, and then if I want to take that back down, I can come under select and shrink that, and it's just going to go back down to the original one. Okay, and then the last component, if we right mouse click, is vertex. So this is the smallest component. This is really when you begin to fine-tune your scene, your object. You can select point by point and begin moving those points around. Okay, you can again select multiples. I can double click and send a loop around like that. I can drag a marquee and grab multiples on both sides. Okay, I can also select an area and then hold down Control and deselect. And now I just have a half selection right here. I can also, to eliminate these up here, if I want to get rid of those, I can hold down the Shift key and deselect those. Okay. And if I want to now push this out, do that. Alright, so that's back to object mode. So we went over edge, and you'll see that it remembers my last selection. Okay, then we went to face, and then last we went to vertex. Okay, so when you're selecting multiples, it's referred to as vertices, or verts for short. Okay, and that covers the components for here. You'll notice there are some other ones on here. There's UVs, which we'll get into later. And then multiple is a nice one to have on. Multiple just allows you to move between whatever you have selected. So I actually like using multiple. I don't have to keep coming back over here and selecting the different components. I can just go to multiple and select that. And wherever I hover over, I can either select a face, an edge, or a vertice. Okay. Let's come over here to the NURBS. So the NURBS, you'll notice right away it has far fewer edges on it. Okay, this is that B-spline that allows for very smooth modeling. And there was a time, a number of years ago, this was the preferred method for organic modeling, which is characters. And since subdivisions came out, things have migrated more over to modeling almost exclusively in polygons for organic and hard surface modeling. Okay, but we still use NURBS for a number of things. They come in handy for a lot of different types of modeling within an overall project. And let's go ahead and take a look at the components of a NURBS. So let's right mouse click over this, and straight up here we'll go to isoparm. So if we hover over here, we can see as we click on the different isoparms here, these are the edges, the equivalent of an edge on a NURBS. Okay, so we can grab those. So we can't scale and move these around. Okay, we can come over here to what's called hull, and hull puts a cage around here, and this is going to be how you would change the isoparms on here. So you would select a hull and you could move that. Okay, so you can see how nice and soft this is. You can scale it up, down. All right. And then let's right mouse click again and come over to Control Vertex. So you'll notice that these little control vertex or CVs are hovering outside of the model. So they're not like what we had over here with our vertex that were right on the model. Okay, these hover out here. This is part of that spline algorithm. So we would come out here and grab these, and then we can begin to pull on them and shape the model. Okay, just going to undo that. And we can grab rows of them. Okay, we can grab several over here, and we can move that. So those are the main components that you would use. So you would use a hull to move around the different isoparms. Okay, and then the control vertex is mainly what you use to shape it. Okay. All right, so those are the different components for NURBS as well as polygons, and different ways of selecting components. I'm going to just select both of these and hit delete, and I'm going to come back over to the polygon modeling and drop in another sphere. I'm just going to hold X down and snap it up one time, and that puts it up here on the ground plane. And I'm going to right mouse click and go to Vertex. Okay, so I'm just going to drag a marquee across here on the top, grabbing these, and I missed one right there, so I just want to grab all of those. A fast way of grabbing these too is to just go to your front view, and this way you're not dealing with the perspective view, so you can come across here and grab those and come back to perspective, and that way you don't have to go back to the back side and shift select the missing ones. So let's talk about soft select. If we double click on our tool, we get tool settings. Okay, right now the axis orientation is set to world. We can change the axis orientation to object if we just wanted to stay on the object. Our object is sitting right in the center of world space, so we wouldn't really see anything happen here. Okay, back to world. Okay, but what I really want to jump down to is this soft selection right here. Let's open this up, and if we hit soft select, we can see that this changed quite a bit here. So our fall off radius is up pretty high. It defaults at 5. I'm going to slide it down to about 1. Okay, just put a 1 in there. So now we can actually see this fall off happening. So where we selected up here on top, this is getting 100% of the selection if we started to move this. And then as it falls off to the different colors, so we've got the bright yellow, and then we can see it's starting to transition here into an orange, and then the orange transitioning into this red, and then down into a darker red, into black, and then this is where it ends. So this is where it has 0 input. Okay, where it goes back to the blue line, this has no effect right here. So if I grab this now and I want to scale it or move it, we'll go to scale here, do that, we can see we're getting that really nice fall off that we were seeing over on the NURBS. So this is a great way of working in polygons and getting this nice smooth fall off, is using the soft select. So again, that's right down here, and you can check it on and off, and then you can affect the fall off radius. Okay, and again you can see the radius colors right here for the fall off. Yellow being 100%, and it goes down to black where it's at 0. You can change the type of curve that it has, so it can be a linear curve. Okay, we've got it happening more right here in the center, like that. So you can use these different types of curve presets here to affect how you want to scale or manipulate those different vertices. Okay, there's a little bit faster way. Instead of going into the tools themselves, we can close this, and I'm going to just bring this back here, just hitting Z to get it back to a sphere. So to go into soft select mode using the hotkey, I can use B as in boy and hit that, and you'll notice that the whole thing is lit up. For the most part, the radius is set up too high right now, so this would actually scale pretty much the whole thing. You can see there's a little bit of tapering off right here. But if we want to adjust the radius, we can hold the B key down, and with our left mouse button I can click and drag to the left, and you'll see that blue ring come in there, and you can already see the fall off beginning to change. Okay, so I can control my radius this way for the fall off, and then come back in here and manipulate it however I want, and then hit B again to turn the soft selection off. Alright, let's move over here and take a look at subdivision surfaces. I'm over here on the modeling area under Learn and Explore in Maya 2018, and we're under Subdivision Surface Overview. So subdivisions were something that were used about 8 or 9 years ago, and they began getting phased out when something called Smooth Mesh Preview came in, and for the most part replaced it. Replaced the need for subdivisions. So what subdivisions were being used for was kind of a preview of what a polygon would look like once it was smoothed. And you can kind of read this note right here that it's pretty much no longer supported in pipelines outside of Maya. It's not used in the industry. And what replaced it, as I mentioned before, was the Smooth Mesh Preview. So we're going to take a look at that. Let's just go over here to our setup again. So I've got the polygon sphere and the NURBS sphere out here, and we're going to focus in on this one right here. So what subdivisions used to do, let's take this down in resolution. So I'm going to hit T on the keyboard, and I'm going to take this down to about 8, and let's make them both 8 right here, and hit Q. Okay, so that's pretty low poly right there, okay? And you'll notice up here on top that we've got our triangle still where they're coming up to the pole here and terminating. So if we were to subdivide this under Modify, Convert Polygons to SubD, okay, and there's an option box for that. I'm just going to leave it at default and just do Create. So you can see what it did here. It divided the upper and lower part of the sphere where we had the triangles into a lot more faces. So we've got a lot more resolution up here. What it ends up doing, which doesn't work in the current pipelines, so if you look here, we've got a 5-sided polygon, which is called an n-gon. Same thing here, we've got 5 sides, and then it goes back to 4. So this type of mesh does not work in a game engine, and it also doesn't work bringing it into ZBrush. But let's take a look at what this preview is, the smooth preview on polygons. So right now we can see a really big difference between the NURBS and the polygon sphere. Since I took down the resolution on this, the number of edges going around, it's become very faceted. However, we have a preview using hotkeys, so right now we're in standard mode, which is 1. If I hit 3, this is going to take it into a smooth state here. You can see it lost a little bit of volume, so it got a little bit smaller. And if I go to 2, 2 is going to put up a wire cage as well as a preview of the smoothed state. So if we go back out here and look at the documents for this, we have the original mesh, which is 1, cage plus smooth mesh is hotkey 2, and smooth mesh is hotkey 3. Alright, so this is just giving you a preview. It's not actually changing the mesh in any way. So if I hit 3 on here and I go up here and I render this using Maya software, you can see the faceted polygon state right here that it is in. Alright, so it's not minding the smoothing preview on here. This is a little different, so let's just duplicate this with Control D, and I'm just going to slide it over here, and then I'm going to hit 1 on this one. Let's move this one over just a little bit. I'm going to hit 1 on this one as well. However, I'm going to smooth this one now. So let's come under Mesh, Smooth, and select that. We can see over here there's a little dialog box for smoothing, and it's just division of 1. We can take this up. It doesn't really need to be up much higher than this. And then hit Q to get out of that. And then go back to object mode. And we've got our 3 different spheres up here. So let's render this now. Take a look at it. Okay, so we've got the smooth preview. We've got the original state here of the polygon sphere, and then our NURBS sphere. So again, if I hit 3 on this, it's going to look very much like this one right here. It's lost a little bit more volume, it looks like. And if we render that, we still see the faceted polygons on here. Okay, so that's how Smooth Preview works, and a little bit about subdivisions. And we will come back in the next lesson and learn about the modeling toolkit.